Good. I think we got a pretty good quorum, so we can probably get started here. So, hi everyone, welcome to the February PowerShell OpenSSH community call. It's great to see everyone here and saying hi in the chat. Um, this meeting, as usual, will be recorded and uploaded probably the next week. So you can find all of our past community calls there. And of course, a reminder of our code of conduct. The link should have been sent in the chat further up. And some other additional links to the contributing guide are sent, and of course the agenda has been sent. We got a pretty packed agenda. We're going to be talking a little bit about the recent 2024 investment blog that Steve posted, and we have a bunch of other agenda items to go through. First, we'll probably start off actually with an update from the Azure automation team. Nikita, are you here?
Hi, Stephen. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Let me just quickly share my screen and can anybody confirm if you can see the slides?
Yes, I can see it.
All right. So today I have with me Sanjeev, who's from the engineering team, and I'm Nikita from the PM team, and we'll talk about a new feature that went public preview last month. That's automation runtime environment. And along with this feature, we have also introduced support for. Let me just talk about the motivation behind releasing this feature. Uh, we heard from a lot of customers that it was difficult to upgrade the runbooks to the latest versions. Uh, or customers who wanted to keep the names of the runbook same, they had to create multiple automation accounts. Or if there were dependencies between different modules because of which there were breaking changes within the runbooks, then also customers had to create very multiple accounts. So we have tried to resolve all those concerns through this feature. That's the runtime environment. And okay, so the PowerShell 7.2 runbook, which was the components of the PowerShell 7.2 runbook are actually script. That's the script code, the language, that's PowerShell, the runtime version, that's 7.2, and the packages that were required during the job execution. Now, this was the old experience which was required, which was hampering the upgrade of runbooks to the latest version. So now what we have done is we have decoupled the script code with the rest of the components, and the runtime environment now includes the language that could be PowerShell or Python, and the runtime version could be, for example, 7.2 for PowerShell or 7.4, and the packages could be the default ones, which are AZ PowerShell and Azure CLI, as well as the custom packages which you can import from the gallery. So there is a slight change in the experience when you create a runbook. However, all the existing runbooks in your automation account would be available in the new experience. And these are linked to the system created runtime environments. So which are created by the service itself, so that you don't have to go through the hassle of upgrading, moving all the existing runbooks to the new experience. So let me just quickly cover what have been the key benefits of this feature. Now you have complete control over the job execution environment, because now you can define the language, the runtime version, as well as all the modules that are required at runtime. Uh, as I mentioned earlier, all your existing runbooks would continue to show in the new experience. The upgrade becomes very simple to the latest runtime version. There is no change in the runbook required. You can continue to manage it within the same automation account. Also, if you find that there are that the result of the upgrade was not as expected, you can roll back to the previous versions also. Um, And because now you can segregate different modules across different runtime environments, you can organize your code within the same account very efficiently. Uh, and this, the Azure CLI command support, which is one of the key highlights of this feature, and it was asked by a lot of our customers. So PowerShell as well as Azure CLI command now proved to be a very partial tool, a powerful tool to manage your Azure resources. And last but not the least, we would be able to reduce the time gap between the partial releases as well as their support in runbooks in Azure Automation. So a bunch of key benefits with this feature. And let me quickly cover the roadmap towards GA. So we would be supporting all kind of runbooks as well as we'll introduce support for hybrid jobs also very soon. You would be able to configure runtime environment through the automation extension for VS Code. Um, there would be a capability to clone the runtime environment. If you already have an existing runtime environment, you'd be able to copy it and make just incremental changes to it and link it to a new runbook to just simply upgrade. So that would be a very simplified experience. Again, the support for bicep arm template command is coming up. And we would also have RBAC permissions for the runtime environment. So I would like to hear from any of you if anybody has tried this feature and would like to share your feedback, would like to come, would you like to unmute yourself, or you can just post your feedback on the chat. Uh, we would be glad to know how are we faring till now. Uh, also, if not right now, you can just drop an email to askazureautomation@microsoft.com and reach out to us whenever you try out this feature. Anyone willing to share any feedback for this feature? So I'll just
Um,
monitor the chat for a few seconds.
there is one ask for Azure CLI support on Python. So we are currently supporting for PowerShell as of now. Python is on the way, so it'll land soon.
Nikita, could you send the where folks can contact you in the chat just so
Yeah,
folks
sure,
have
I
a
can
record
do
of
that.
that in case they come up with something different or come up with something later. Looks like there's some stuff in the chat as well. I think I saw something in the Q&A tab of the teams. I'll let you take a look at that.
Thank you, folks. I do see a lot of good feedback here on the chat. And for those who have not tried it, I would encourage you to please use it and share feedback with us. Good as well as bad. Both are welcome. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks, Stephen, for giving us the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nikita and Sanjeev. Looks like there's some activity in the chat, so we can keep the conversation going there. As far as the next agenda item, let me just get my screen together. We're going to spend some time kind of walking through the 2024 team investment blog. If you haven't had a chance to see it, there's a link to the blog that Steve posted. We'll kind of be going through one by one just to talk, briefly about each of these items. We'll first start off with Aditya on PowerShell 7.5. Aditya, can you able to give brief updates around that?
Yep. Hello, everybody. I am Aditya. So, as most of you might have already known, PowerShell .NET released .NET 9 Preview 1 earlier this week. So, based on that, we'll be releasing a new PowerShell preview coming up very shortly. And we are going to attempt to release a preview of PowerShell based on a newer version of .NET previews almost every month. The ship cycle for PowerShell 7.5 is going to be similar to previous years. where we follow on the releases of previews every month, and then have RC, and we'll be targeting a GA later in the year after .NET releases the GA for .NET 9. That's that's all about the updates for 7.5 for now.
Thanks, Aditya. Patrick, are you on? Do you want to talk a little bit about pseudo-terminal support?
Yeah. So one of the things we're working on is utilizing pseudo terminals for native executables. So the reason that we're looking into that is because in order to read standard out or standard error from an executable, you need to redirect it typically. But when you do that, it signals to the application that it should act differently. Like it can't do anything interactive. It can't. It usually doesn't write colors, that kind of thing. So if you want to examine the output but not necessarily consume it, there isn't typically a way to do that. But we're going to be using pseudo terminals to give us a way to do that without telling the app that it's redirected. So when it first makes it to a release, like a preview release, it probably won't look all that different, but over time it enables a lot of different things. Like we could have feedback providers look at a command's output without actually consuming it. We can like scan the output for markers that say it has JSON content. So maybe we could, and this is stuff that we're going to try to do, but it's just to give you an idea. We could scan it, see that it's JSON, and then convert it to a formatted object automatically. Another thing that it helps with is we have to completely re-implement the system to diagnostic to process API in order to do this. So some of the stuff that would previously be deemed too much work to do, like hooking up the pipes directly for output, that becomes at least feasible to do.
Cool. Thanks, Patrick. Jason, would you like to talk about some platform support stuff?
Why, sure, why not? So, hey, folks, think about or go to and take a look at the PowerShell release page on GitHub. And if you go down to the assets where you've all been, you see this giant list of Windows, Mac, and a variety of flavors of Linux. It's kind of like a candy store, everything you could possibly want. This is our image distributions. Well, this process of building, testing, all of these distributions has gotten really complex, because you'll notice that with every version, there's a whole bunch of architectures, and we need to keep all of this updated. This has kind of gotten ahead of us. So what we're doing this year is we're reworking this entire process. And so you'll notice for a few months, we might be a little bit laggy, but our intention is to rework this process and to improve our tests, our documentation, and the infrastructure to which we build on. See, we, not Microsoft, but we, the PowerShell team, build all of this ourselves, including all of the infrastructure that goes with it. So it's pretty complicated. Now, one of the things that we're going to be doing, and I hope that you'll be able to see this publicly in the next few months, is that we're also going to be creating a backlog of distributions, along a prioritized backlog, along with some estimates. So you'll be able to see publicly when we plan to be able to work on a specific distro and to get it out. Along with that, we're improving our testing processes and our automation processes so we can spend more time dialing into issues where we need to, rather than fighting issues on our pipelines. So we expect to see some changes and expect to see some improvements over this year as we go through this process. Thanks, Stephen.
Cool, thank you, Jason. Sydney, you want to talk about some bug fixes and community PRs?
Yeah, absolutely. So alongside the PowerShell 7.5 milestone, one thing we've been thinking about, talking about, and sort of a goal of ours is for PowerShell 7.5 to really be a community-focused release. So one thing about PowerShell 7.5 is that it's not an LTS release. So we kind of alternate. So PowerShell 7.4, the most recent release, was LTS. PowerShell 7.6 will be LTS. PowerShell 7.5 is not. And so while the quality bar is still extremely high with PowerShell 7.5, this does introduce a little bit more flexibility to maybe get in more changes, more feature requests, those sorts of things. And we really want to, in this cycle, prioritize the existing PRs from the community over trying to get in sort of maybe new PRs from the team. So that is a goal of ours. I will say that this is a list of things we're planning to invest in. This isn't a list of things that we're patting ourselves on the back on, that's saying we're doing a really great job on at the moment. Totally recognize that the open PRs in the PowerShell repo are quite large right now. And some folks have been waiting quite a long time to get their PRs reviewed. So this is something we're hoping to focus on in the next milestone, not necessarily saying that this is something we've been doing a great job on. One other question that came up around this that I just wanted to kind of directly address was like, hey, so one way our team does this is we do something called community days on Mondays. And so the way community days work is basically everyone on the team works in open source in one way or the other. And so we like to spend Mondays really focusing on triaging issues and reviewing PRs and whatever repos we spend the most time in. And so for a lot of folks on the team, that's in the PowerShell repo, but for some other folks on the team, that may involve working in other repos as well. There was a question that came up that was like, hey, are you still doing community Mondays? Like, I haven't been seeing as much action lately. Totally fair question. The short answer is like, yes, absolutely. We are still doing community Mondays. Our calendars are still blocked off, and that's still the priority on Mondays. The longer answer is that there might be some like reasons why you've seen less action, so to speak, over the past couple months, that are just like various things that like you as a community member like hopefully shouldn't have to worry about. Things like the holidays, or like people needing to take personal time, or just various like resources getting shifted to other repos or projects. Hopefully you'll see that get sorted out and kind of stabilize shortly here. We're kind of reaching more of a normal point after some fluctuations around the holidays. But we can kind of keep a pulse on that and keep checking in during community calls. So feel free to keep the questions coming on that. But the short answer is like, yeah, we're still doing community days, and it is a focus for 7.5. So that's my long answer on community. I'll pass it over to Aditya to talk about gallery fundamentals.
Hello. So for the next period of time, we'll be focusing on improving the reliability of gallery and making improvements in the backend to make it more reliable, more performant. There might be some features which would come in at the later part of the year, but we don't have any details to share right now. But we might share some details as we are closer to that time period. But the focus for gallery is going to be making improvements on its reliability. That's all I have.
Cool. I think Autumn, you're next to chat about PS resource get stuff.
Yes. Thank you, Stephen. So our goal, my goodness, our goal for PS Resource Get for the upcoming semester and year is to add support for container registries, both public and private. This is going to allow enterprise customers to have a repository for trusted and untrusted content, since PS Gallery by default is untrusted. So they'll be able to have, or we'll be able to have, a Microsoft trusted repository, while PS Gallery is still the untrusted repository by default. So in addition to having a Microsoft trusted repository, it'll also give enterprise customers the options to have a private gallery, and that will allow them to basically determine their package availability needs for their environments. So an example for this would be like air gap solutions, or other situations based on like what is needed for the team for their galleries. So yeah, look forward to that change in an upcoming preview release.
some things on them. We'll pass it over to Amber to talk a little bit about concurrent installs and local caching. Amber here.
Hi, sorry, I've been having some computer issues today. So can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, awesome. So we have been trying to work on improving the experience of installs in general, especially with modules like AZ that have a ton of dependencies, a few dozen dependencies. So basically, I specifically have been looking through ways to optimize specifically the find and install experience, especially because find initially or install initially calls find to look for the dependencies. That is something I don't know specifically like what else I want to talk about with concurrency, but it's improvements that we are trying to make for an upcoming release, kind of separate from the container work that we're doing. But we should have some vast improvements on that within the next couple of releases. That's all.
Cool. Do you want to share a little bit about the local caching as well, or the
local caching? Sure, yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. We have not started work on that yet, but essentially what we want to do in the near future is to set up local caches so that it can also improve the experience of finding and installing a bit faster and without having to make frequent network connections, which can be a bottleneck, especially with the gallery at times.
Yeah. Another thing I'll just add to it too. Another thing that this enables is a potential for a feedback provider to actually utilize the gallery as a source. So
Yeah,
if you
good
type
point.
commandlets that aren't there, we can utilize this cache to suggest to install the particular modules that the commandlets are coming from. So that's a long-term goal we have of that area. But like Amber said, it's something that we're looking at, and the work has not started yet, but something we want to get to this year. Most of the stuff like we're talking about here are forward-thinking, and I guess the next item is mine, which is intelligence in the shell. So we're still committed to bringing a deeper level of intelligence into the shell through improvements to PS Reline, as well as other additional improvements we can think about. That is not just bringing natural language chat experiences to the shell. Not too much to share there, but just wanted to call out that we are still very interested in investing in that area. From there, I'll pass it over to Michael to talk about configuration. Are you here, Michael?
Hey, I'm here. Yeah, things are going well. I just want to encourage everybody to go take a look at the repo. It's github.com/PowerShell/DSC. And just kind of go through the issues list and look for scenarios that are important to you and give us feedback. And that's really all we're looking for at this point in time. We're hoping to have another release within the next couple of weeks that will address some common issues we've been running into in validation. But at this point, I think the best way to stay involved in that project is in the issues list. There are quite a few active discussions happening over there, from everything related to grouping of resources, secrets management, orchestration of imperative code combined with declarative code. Like you can imagine all the different scenarios, but look forward to hearing from anybody who's interested. I think that's probably it.
Cool. I think Danny is up next to talk a little bit about some OpenSSH stuff.
I am. So OpenSSH, we have a few exciting things on the way that we're not allowed to talk about yet, but stay tuned probably over the next few weeks. But besides that, I'd say it's just kind of renewing kind of the commitment we have with OpenSSH, that being the preferred remoting protocol for PowerShell remoting going forward. And even for really all of Windows Server workloads, you should be moving towards, say, command line centric remoting, not using RDP, really looking at using WAC or OpenSSH. And then kind of building on the partnerships that we already have kind of within Microsoft, whether that be with VS Code. Andy just released a 0.01 of using VS Code remoting to connect to an Arc machine. So give that a try. And as well as like our partners like Azure Bastion, and how can we improve their SSH and remoting experience there. I know Tess is up after me and has more to share on SSH. The only other thing that I'll call out is that there was a question added to our agenda about supporting SSH remoting for PowerShell with a password. I think there was a lot of really good answers on the actual issue, but just at a high level, passwords over SSH are really only intended to be used interactively. And so when you create the SSH section, you get prompted by SSH for that password. And say there's a lot of concerns from, I'd say, OpenSSH itself and the OpenBSD Foundation, and really just security in general around, I'd say, non-interactive passwords for SSH and how those are stored and the security implications of a password versus a key. So I'm happy if people want to ask more questions on the chat, but I'll move it along to Tess.
Thanks, Danny. Yeah, so I'm just going to briefly talk about SSHD config, which is going to be a DSC resource that allows you to manage the SSHD config file. For those that don't know, the SSHD config file is just a text file that controls the settings for the OpenSSH server. So if you're just managing a single OpenSSH server, you might modify that file directly, but there are a lot of directives and a lot of arguments that are within that file. So if you're managing multiple OpenSSH servers at scale, that can become a cumbersome process. So we're trying to hopefully simplify that. The first scenario is, within DSC terminology, more of a get scenario to just look at what the existing configuration is for the OpenSSH server. And then ultimately the end state is a full get, set, and test scenario to be able to manage that SSHD config file. This is more of a backlog item for us at the moment, just full transparency. So I think it might have even been mentioned in the team investments last year, but we do hope to get to this later in the year.
Awesome, thank you, Tess. Jason, do you want to talk a little bit about help system? And I think that sort of wraps up the rest of the blog topics.
We're getting close, aren't we? Yeah, sure. So folks, you may have heard of this great little tool that we have called PlattyPS. And this tool lets you do the same thing that we do, which is create updatable help for your PowerShell commandlets, stuff like that. I don't know if you know this or not, but we also use PlattyPS internally at Microsoft. It actually produces all the documentation for our reference pipeline. Basically, everything you see from Microsoft on the commandlets is made with PlattyPS. Well, recently we started a new initiative with PlattyPS. We're working with our internal partner on the docs team to provide more details and more information in your PowerShell documentation, which is a great thing. So we're redoing PlattyPS from the ground up, a new schema, a new architecture. We've got great engineering on this from Aditya, Jim, and Sean Wheeler's providing a lot of the little finite details that we need to make sure that we get right. While we're doing this for the internal partner, which is our internal reference pipeline, we're going to help them start to convert some of those pipelines, like the PowerShell one and some of the other teams' pipelines, just to make sure we've got it right. So after we're done dogfooding it, I'm going to start writing up scenarios for a public release that we'll do later in the year of PlattyPS, which I'm really excited about. With this new architecture. So look forward for more information as we start producing things around new scenarios. It'll do more than just make updatable help. You might find it to do all kinds of neat conversions for you very quickly, from Markdown to YAML to MAML and back and forth and validated. It's pretty cool, and you'll find a lot of neat uses for it. So we're looking forward to this over this year as we work on this within our internal partner, and then bringing it to you publicly when we've gotten it all nailed down. So thanks a lot. Thanks, Stephen.
Cool, thank you, Jason. Last thing we'll just kind of call out from the blog is that we're still investing in maintaining a bunch of our kind of tangential projects outside of just the core PowerShell engine. And this includes stuff like the VS Code extension, PS script analyzer, console GUI tools module, text utility module, PS readline module, and secret management module. We're still very much we are still very much spending time maintaining these repositories, having the occasional releases, and monitoring issues and PRs in those repos. Of course, that's not limited to that list. Those are just some of the key ones that we look at. But yeah, cool. I think that covers everything to do with the blog. So if anyone has any follow-up questions with anything that we talked about, you feel free to add it in the chat. So next item on our list, let me just get the agenda back up, is to welcome a new member of our team. Justin Chung is an intern joining us. Justin, are you here? Do you want to give a brief introduction?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Justin Chung. I'm the new Leap intern over at PowerShell and OpenSSH. I'm working with Dongbo and Steve, and I'm really excited to be here and add value to these projects and these teams and this community. Look forward to working with y'all, and yeah, I guess that's it.
Cool, thank you, Justin. I mean,
Yeah.
we're super excited to have Justin. Justin just started with us this week, and so just wanted to bring him on and show him everything to do with the PowerShell community. So cool. Next up is Sean with some docs updates.
Yeah, so let me share my screen. Not a whole lot new to talk about in the past month. We did, with the release of PowerShell 7.5 Preview 1, we have documentation for that now. So if you go to the version selector here, you'll see it at the top, 7.5 Preview. So we'll continue to keep that up to date with each release. And there's been a ton of updates in the DSC documentation for DSC v3. Check out the changelog article there for what's new. Mikey Lombardi has been working really hard on that documentation, and there's, I think, a new alpha scheduled pretty soon, so there'll be a lot more changes. He's done some reorganization of the documentation as well to help it flow better. So hopefully you can take a look at that. And then in other news, I'm not responsible for the Windows PowerShell module documentation, but I wanted to point out that they have released the documentation for Server 2025 in preview here. And I've been working with the folks that that maintain this and working with the Windows team a little bit to clean up some of the documentation here and fix some of the problems with update help for some of these modules. We're not going to be able to fix all of them. It's still a work in progress, but it's getting better with each iteration. And like I said, this is not, I don't have responsibility for this content, but I'm trying to help out where I can. And so we should see some improvements there. And I'll hand it back to you, Stephen.
Cool. Thanks so much, Sean. Jason, do you want to talk about some updates to the working group application process?
Why, sure. It's me again. So the working groups help both the community and the PowerShell team triage and move issues along. And so we really appreciate when community folks can invest time and help out these working groups. We've been asking for new members to working groups, and it gets hard for us to track it in a particular issue. I've noticed that we've kind of missed a few folks and been kind of late on some things. So we're improving that process as well. Essentially, we're creating a new form that you can fill out to get membership into a work group. And I'm going to show you that form and how to use it in just a second. It'll be on GitHub. It'll be pretty easy. It'll be a new issue form to fill out. The idea is fill out the form, and that'll go to the working groups. When the working groups meet, they'll go through, see if they have any membership forms, and then they'll discuss and respond accordingly. So I guess kind of what I'm saying is that even when the form goes up, don't expect an immediate response, because the working group has to meet. Some working groups meet on different schedules. I know that the interactive working group meets almost weekly, but some working groups meet once a month, once every 2 months. So you got to give them some time to get the issue in and then respond. But we really look forward to folks joining. So let me show you that form really quick. Let's see if I can figure out how to share my screen and get the right screen up. Well, let's try this button. This one seems to work. Oh, hey, that's it. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Okay, cool. So this PR hasn't closed yet. It'll close in the next couple of days. When it does, this form will become available. I'll show you where to get it in just a second, but let me just show you the form. I'm going to go over to preview. So excuse my little preview mess, but essentially when the form comes up, we really appreciate you coming in. Just wanted to give you a note that not all of the working groups at this moment are accepting new members, but the list of the ones that are listed here, so you can select one. I know it's kind of grayed out. You can't see things very well right now. We will change this list as working groups have their membership open up. We have a question for you. Can you provide at least an hour of work a week to that working group? Now down here, and I've given you a warning, this is a public form. This will be on GitHub. So we have some questions for you. Give us some information. Keep in mind that it's going to be public. Why do you want to join the group? What skills do you bring to the group? And can you give us some references to links, articles, code, issues that you've worked on, that kind of thing. Fill this out, and when you send this, the working groups will pick it up. How do you fill this out and how do you send it? Well, you go to issues. And when you're in issues, if you go to new issue, you will see it, although you don't see it today, you will see it on this list as the working group membership form. So let me kill that. So there you go. We look forward to having new members file and join, and we look forward to talking with you. So thanks, Stephen.
Cool, thank you, Jason. So one last item from us is around the March community call. So we've had a couple requests from folks who want to join the community call live, who are in a time zone that this time is not particularly convenient for them. And so to accommodate those folks in Asia and Australia and India, we are hoping to host the March community call at a different time than usual. So we're going to try this out. It will be hosted at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time that same Thursday, March 21st, I believe. So for most folks in that area, it will be the next day, probably March 22nd in the morning. But we wanted to just call that out to folks. Of course, the normal recording process will be in place for those who this time is not going to be convenient for them. But we're going to give this a shot. And if you know folks in any Asian time zones, in Australia or India, or anywhere where this time doesn't work, please share the discussion tab with them, and we would love for them to join. And yeah, so the current thinking was do these kind of calls once every 6 months, so it'll be March and then September. We'll see how this March one goes, and we'll kind of keep folks updated. But just a call out that the next month's community call will not be hosted at this time. It will be hosted much later in the day. So yeah, I think that covers all of our team's agenda items. I think we've answered some of the questions. There was one question in the repo around POS resource get v3 dependency support. I don't know, Sydney, if you want to talk to that or just respond to that issue.
Yeah, I can address it just like quickly a little bit. And then Amber and Em, if you guys want to add anything as well. So I'll say that like I guess I believe that the issue is essentially so with PS Resource Get we support a number of different types of repositories in PS Resource or in PowerShell Get. Like v2, there was only one type of repository supported, NuGet v2 feeds. And that's what the PowerShell gallery is. It's a NuGet v2 feed. That's the type of endpoint it is. With PS Resource Get, we support a whole bunch of other types of endpoints, one of them being NuGet v3 endpoints. With that, there's some challenges. In particular, two challenges I believe are called out in this issue. One is dependency support and another is like find all support. The short answer is it would be, we would love to support dependencies. We plan to, we hope to. We also are accepting PRs. So if you are interested in, opening a PR to add dependency support, we would be happy to review that and take a look at that. There are some challenges that make it a little tricky to add both dependency support and find all support from repositories like NuGet. I don't know if Justin supports it. Anam or Amber, you want to speak to some of those challenges?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it.
Sure.
With regards to dependencies, the way it's done on NuGet Gallery is a bit different than the way it's done on PowerShell Gallery. So the dependencies are definitely listed in terms of like the frameworks they support, or like if you're supporting, or sorry, if you want to get the package and you want support for Net Standard 2.0 versus like Net 472, the dependencies can differ. And I think on PS Resource Get side, we just haven't gotten around to implementing and kind of navigating that. The scenario with find all is mostly just kind of like traversing the index and getting all the packages. There wasn't a direct way to doing that, so you would just kind of have to traverse the resources, and we haven't done that yet, but we've also tried to make a note in the docs that we don't support it. I guess then we have other v3 repositories like ADO where they are using like a NuGet v3 API support. But in those cases, they have upstream repositories. So it gets a little confusing in terms of like when we're getting all the packages for your specific feed for ADO, we want to make sure that we don't also try and go and traverse the upstream feeds, because then that would be a pretty high workload and maybe kind of slow. So those are things that we have kind of put for future work, but we do hope to get to. I will take also a look at the comments in the chat and kind of follow up with that too for how we can kind of look to do that support. Yeah,
we can take a look at Justin, your module 2 module fast and see if we can, if anything we can pull from there. But also I noticed that the issue hasn't been triaged, and I will apologize for that, and definitely triage it, put it in the back box, something we hope to support, just haven't quite gotten to yet. But yeah, hopefully that gets a little bit more of an understanding.
Cool, thanks, Sydney. So we're at the end of our agenda. If anyone has any questions or demos they'd like to share, feel free to add it in the chat. No, Jason, I saw a couple questions around CloudShell. Anything you wanted to update around that? I think you might be having audio issues.
Let me try this again. How's that?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Thanks. Sorry, I was typing this in. Sorry, Alexander, I typed so slow. I was trying to type this in to answer you. Yeah, so CloudShell has transitioned to a much larger team now called Cloud Consoles. The new PM, and I will put this in for you into the chat. The new PM for that, his name is Mitchell Beifeld. and he'll be happy to answer questions for you. But I can definitely tell you this. They are getting ready to release ephemeral sessions in the new UX. I think you may have even seen the documentation published, because Sean and I did get the documentation out. And I'm not sure what their exact release date is for that, but it's really soon now. And they have some new things on the horizon as well, since they are now a bigger team working with Serial Console as well. Expect to see some great things from them. So contact Mitchell and he'll keep you up to date. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Jason. I see in the chat too, James posted some stuff about the tickets are still available for the PowerShell and DevOps Global Summit on April 8th through 11th. So feel free to reach out to John Janelle for more details if you are interested. Cool. Let me just double check this. GitHub. I think we covered everything there. Sure. Yeah, Justin, do you want to do a quick demo of your update help fast? I think you're muted.
It really likes to move that around on me once I start the presentation. Sorry. So yeah, hey everybody. So I just have just kind of a quick demo of just a little script that I made that when updating help, especially across a lot of commandlets, it's currently done kind of serially. So I just basically very simply added parallel to the process. So this little link just simply links to a GitHub gist that runs it. But when you run this, it's just going to go through and automatically grab all the different helps and get them, but do them in a parallel fashion. So just like that, in 6.3 seconds, I just updated all the help on my system. So this, I'll bring this script up so you can see where it is. But you can also, that just basically links to it. But it's not a terribly complicated script. It's just simply a matter of taking the update help command and running it through some thread jobs. And just kind of a real simple example of doing that, as well as reporting on progress while doing something like that. So just a real simple, quick demo, but an easy way to kind of get some real quick wins using parallelization. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. Ryan is talking about, Ryan, do you want to speak to that, or? Looks like the PowerShell UK user group has a meetup on the 29th and will be announced on the next few days on Twitter. Thanks for sharing that, Ryan. Cool. Well, yeah, if anyone has any more questions or things they'd like to demo, we have a couple more minutes left. Otherwise, we can always end a little early. I'll just pause again in case anyone's typing, or yeah, anyone's welcome to come off mute as well.
Hey, Stephen, I didn't want to leave you alone, and I love cameras. So, hi, everybody. I'm John Janelle. I'm from the chat, but I wanted everybody to encourage them to take a look at the PowerShell Summit schedule. Monday is a little bit different format-wise. We have 2 groups of pretty long sections that deep dive into a topic, so I encourage you to take a look at that. We're back in the Maidenbauer Center in Bellevue this year. I'm the party planner-ish, so I'm kind of working on axe throwing on the side. So if you're really interested in that and some PowerShell, I encourage you to come out. Again, I left my email in the chat, so if you have any questions or about logistics, I'm available via Slack and all the usual ways, and folks know how to get a hold of me. But I encourage you to take a look, or if you have someone on your team who's interested in like learning about PowerShell for the first time, we do have the on-ramp where it's a whole kind of like sidetrack where people can come up to speed on PowerShell and Git and DevOps and all the fun thing, and get to meet members of the community and build a little bit of a network. So anyway, wanted to plug that. Have a fun time, and I'm looking forward to like the 7 p.m. Community call, because that's later is definitely a better time. So anyway, good to see you, Stephen. See you around, folks.
Thanks so much, John. Yeah, if anyone has the opportunity to go to the PowerShell and DevOps Summit, it's a really great experience. Lots of for us on the PowerShell team, we have a bunch of, I don't know how many sessions we have, but I know we have a lot there to share some of the details there, or details of what we're working on there. And yeah, it's a great time to connect with the PowerShell community. So definitely very much looking forward to it. I see there was some chatting about the Pacific PowerShell user group that met up last night, and they'll also be doing another meeting. So if you're in the Pacific area, maybe James or Chris could just send some information on how folks could join or get involved with that user group in the chat. That would be awesome. And then kind of, yeah, I think we could probably end off here. Cool. Thanks, Chris. And yeah, so yeah, thanks everyone for joining this month's community call. Last reminder that March's community call will not be hosted at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. It will be hosted at 7 p.m. Pacific time. So tell your friends, and yeah, thank you so much for coming.